Hi there, I am Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide. And for all my fans out there, it is a pleasure to be back out here. I made a video recently where I was just with my daughter. I thought that would be a really fun thing to show people, and I hope you enjoyed it if you were watching that video. I think it's very important for you not to just watch videos of people like me standing in front of a computer or standing in front of a screen, something like this, and helping you learn, but just to actually see how children are developing. Really just to remind yourself that it's really so simple if you want to get fluent. You just have to learn the same way natives learn. Well, the reason I've been kind of away from YouTube for a while, thanks a lot for the people that were asking. I'm glad, people are still missing me out there. I've actually been extremely busy producing a lot of new courses. So each month for Master English Conversation, we've got lots of new lessons that have been released, as well as new courses. But most importantly, we've got the new app that we're building. So I'll be talking about that more. Really, we're very excited about releasing that. We've been going through, there's a lot of things about improving it and getting it ready for the final beta release. So more people will be able to test it very soon. But anyway, that's why I've been away. But a lot of the things that I've been doing for sending people lots of lessons. So if you are not already learning with me, you can click on the link in the description below this video or up in the link. Should be a link in the upper left here above my head. That's where you can learn about our just regular newsletter that you can get subscription to. So it's free. And this is where I give lots of great tips. And I do this every week. So even if I'm not releasing things on YouTube, that's where people who are getting lessons from me are continuing to learn with me. Maybe 2 or 3 mails I send a week with lots of interesting tips. And that's actually what this video is about. So again, I know I've been away for a while, but I'm not dead. I'm still here, just working very hard on the other things that we're doing. And so we can bring a lot more great content to YouTube in the future. But the stuff I wanted to talk about today, because I had actually released just one of the newsletters I had sent out to learners, a lot of people were very excited and interested about it. So I wanted to make a video that talks about more of that same thing, just so more people could enjoy it. So I hope you enjoy this quick video here. So this was actually a conversation I had. My wife's sister-in-law and her husband were visiting our home, so they just left, but they were visiting us for a while. And while they were here, both she and her husband, they're both learning a little bit of English. And my wife's sister, her English is actually quite good. She doesn't speak very well. She is probably a lot like you, where she can understand a lot. She can read and write, but really she has trouble speaking. And so she was asking me a lot of the same kinds of questions that we get from people. So we were actually watching a children's TV show. So Aria was just sitting and watching it, and we were just all having breakfast together. And it was talking about getting a checkup at a doctor's office. So she was asking, why is it a checkup? Why do we say checkup and not just like going to get a check at the office or at the doctor's office? And so what I explained to her and what I wrote to learners who are newsletter subscribers, is what I'm going to explain again now, but just kind of go into a little bit more detail because this is so important. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in this video at the start, really, if you can learn how to think like a native and try to understand, to develop that sense of correctness that natives have, this is really what's going to help you communicate much more like a native speaker. So part of this, like being able to communicate like a native speaker, is developing this sense of why we do the certain things that we do, because most native speakers, they can't really give a good reason in the same way that you would find in a textbook about why something is like it is. They just have a sense, it just feels right, and so this is what I want you to develop. When I was actually explaining this to her, I thought it would be interesting just to go online and see what other examples or why people are describing this. And I found a couple of different websites that were explaining things like this, and really they're giving just way too much information. If you were to read all that, it would go into your ear and then go out the other ear, and you would get just incredibly frustrated about that, because learning those rules is not what's going to help you get fluent. So let's talk about this. So she was saying, why is it check up and not check? And basically what I explained is that for phrasal verbs, and I won't give a long explanation of phrasal verbs, but really I'm just known for talking about phrasal verbs because they're so important. They're really the most important thing that you can learn if you want to become a successful speaker fast. And again, I don't want to talk about phrasal verbs too much, But the point here is if you want to understand phrasal verbs, it's really just two or more words that we're putting together in order to express a more difficult idea. So a common one is the verb dismount. This means to get off of something, like if you're riding a horse, but the phrasal verb is get off. So you can take things like that, and we can put these simple words together, and really it makes you be able to communicate like a native much more easily, because you don't have to learn lots of difficult words. You only have to learn a few simple ones, and you just learn to put them together like a native. And if you'd like to learn more about that, you can click on the link in the description or in the upper left of this video, or I guess the upper right over, I think it should be here over my shoulder, but that will explain more about our visual guide to phrasal verbs. It's an incredible program, and if you're not a member of it, you should be. Anyway, so she was asking about checkup, and this right here, checkup, this is a phrasal noun. So basically, this is where we're taking two words like check and up and putting them together to make a noun instead of a phrasal verb. I don't want to talk a lot about phrasal nouns and phrasal verbs because I go into those in other places like the visual guide to phrasal verbs. But basically, this is just taking a verb and making it a noun. So we have a checkup. And she was asking, again, why is it up in this way? Why do we do that? And basically, I said, for phrasal verbs, there's a complex way of looking at them, or you can do the simple thing that natives do and just try to understand that some of them are used conversationally. So we add up to things that are used in a conversational way, and then up, and the other kinds of phrasal verbs are used as actual. There's like a good reason why that up would be there. So when you're going to a doctor, especially for young children, and you say, hey, we're going to the doctor to get checked. If you say, oh, we're getting checked at a doctor, it sounds a lot more serious and like a not very fun thing that you should be doing. And, so just to try to make it a little bit of a less stressful situation, this is why we have a check up as opposed to just getting checked. So I was in the newsletter example and explaining to my wife or explaining to her sister-in-law that when you go to an auto mechanic, so something like that, you can check something. So we're checking it, and it's not like a serious situation. You're just getting something checked. But in a casual, more conversational one, usually at the doctor, you get something checked out, or we go for a check up. But these words, this preposition here, up, it's only added really to make things sound more conversational. Now, you can probably find people who will give you long and detailed explanations, and I can go into a lot more detail about why we do a lot of things with phrasal verbs, but it's much easier for you if you just think like a native and remember that sometimes the up is added just to sound more conversational. It doesn't change the meaning of the verb, it just makes it sound more friendly and conversational. So we'll look through some examples. It was funny, after I sent that letter out, someone else sent me about start off. So why do we start off something instead of start up? And again, the meaning, like the off, doesn't add anything to this verb. It's just saying start or start off, like let's start off the race, or let's start off the meeting by saying something. Now, we do this because we want to have make it more conversational. Like it's just something natives do by just trying to make something sound a bit more natural and a little bit easier to say and less like it's in a textbook. So this is, again, the reason why we have this. And so let's look at that. Well, we'll look at one more example. This is a phrasal noun here, or phrasal noun over here, and a phrasal verb. I just wanted to give one example. So to hold out means to wait for something. Like a sports athlete might be holding out for more money. So he's not going to sign a contract now because he might get more money from a different team if he waits. So he's going to hold out. So this is the verb. He is holding out. But the phrasal noun, he becomes a holdout. So if I am holding out for money, I am a holdout. So this is, again, just an example of a phrasal verb versus a phrasal noun. So covering all this, let's just look at these different examples as these two categories. And again, it can get more complex, but you don't have to make it more complex because native speakers don't do this. So if you learn to think like a native and just get that sense of correctness, it becomes a lot easier to understand these things. So let's look at these examples. So hopefully you can see this. We've got wake up, sit up, get up, speak up, bulk up, and pick up. And over here on this side, we have cook up, call up, clean up, road up, buckle up, and wash up. So why are they in these two different groups? So first we have wake up. Now imagine we remove the up from this, does removing the up change the meaning of that, or does it make it more difficult to understand? So in the case of wake up, you can just say wake. And wake up doesn't really change it so much, but it's the idea of physically moving up that we add this up here. So this is why the up is on this side over here, but the up over here is really just used for more conversational purposes, and I'll explain that in just a second. So again, wake up, you're lying in your bed, and you open your eyes, and you're waking up. It's the physical idea, or that idea of actually moving up. It's kind of two different actions. You've got the wake here, and then you also have the physical direction of moving up. So you're lying horizontally on your bed, and then you wake up from there. The same thing with sit up. If we remove the up, does it change the meaning of that verb? So if we just have sit here, what do we mean by that? We mean to actually physically sit down in a chair, to sit. But sit up actually means you're physically sitting up, and typically sit up is something that we say for, or we tell young children to do, or people when they're kind of not sitting very well in their chair, they're kind of slouched like this. So if we say sit up, we actually want you to rise a little bit, to sit better, to sit more with, better posture in your chair. So here, there's a good reason why we have the up there. If we don't have the up, the meaning changes from just sitting to sitting up, which is actually like to sit properly. Now, if we say sit or sit down, then the down doesn't really change anything, because to sit means to sit down. So that's an example where we're just really being a bit more conversational. You can say sit or sit down, and neither of those really change anything, but you will sound a bit more conversational. So you're getting the difference? So let's look at the next one. Second one, or the third one here, is get up. Now we could just say get by itself, but get and get up are really two different things. Get up just means like you're physically like in a lower location and you move to a higher one. So typically in the morning we wake up, it just means we're opening our eyes and we move up a little bit, but then we get up, it means we're physically getting up and out of bed. So the reason the up is here is because it's talking about that physical direction that we're moving in. We're moving up. Same thing with speak up. Now, if I'm speaking with someone, if I remove the up, speak becomes different from speak up. So speak just means to talk like this. But maybe I have a very quiet voice and you can't hear what I'm saying very well. So someone tells me, hey, could you speak up? Speak up. So I'm raising my voice. There's a physical idea of moving up, moving louder. So that's why we have speak up as opposed to just speak. Again, the up has a specific use here, and you can understand physically what we're talking about. So you have to have the up here for this to make sense. Same thing with bulk up. Maybe you've heard this phrasal verb before, maybe not, but bulk meaning a large size, and to bulk up means you're getting bigger, like building more muscle. I'm bulking up at the gym. So bulk, like to bulk doesn't really mean anything, but to bulk up, you have that idea. Again, you're physically moving bigger, moving up, moving out. So there's a good reason for this up to be here. Last one is pick up. So if I'm picking something, I can really pick in any different direction. I can pick something. I can pick the channel on my television. I can pick something actually from a higher location and bring it down, like I'm picking an apple from a tree. But this idea here of pick up, you have a physical moving up of something. You're lifting something, you're picking it, and then you're moving it up to a higher location. So on this side, when you can look at a word and try to think, is there a good reason for this to be here? If this is not here, does that change the meaning of a sentence? And I don't want you to think so much about it, but this way it should hopefully give you a clue when you're looking at these. And it's not just for up, it's for off and on and all these other different prepositions or words that you would find in a phrasal verb. So looking at this side over here, if you remove all of the ups, we've still got the exact same meaning. So nothing really changes. All we're doing is making it sound less like a textbook and more like a conversation. So I want to cook something for dinner, or I'm going to cook something, or yesterday I cooked something for dinner. That's perfectly fine. You can use that English, but if you want to sound more native, you're going to cook something up. Let me cook up something for dinner. I haven't changed the meaning of this. The up does not need to be here, and there's no physical meaning of something like moving up, really. You could think about that like heat rising or something, but you don't have to think about it that way. And if it's difficult to think about, then it's probably just there to sound more conversational. Same thing with call. I want to call my friend. Yesterday I called my friend. Tomorrow I'll call my dad. But if I want to sound more conversational, let me call him up. I called up a friend of mine. Let me call up the pizza delivery company or whatever, the pizza delivery restaurant, to call them up. Again, like there's nothing, if I'm calling something, I'm maybe connecting like this. I'm not moving up in any way. So there's no real reason for that up to be here. It just sounds more conversational. Does that make sense? Next, we have clean up. It's the same thing. I mean, I could clean up a wall. I could wipe this down over here. Again, like even what I just said, like to wipe something or wipe it down. There's no difference in the meaning there. I can wipe this, or I sound more conversational when I say I'm going to wipe it down. So wipe it down. So physically, I could be moving down, but I'm moving up as well. So that down doesn't need to be there. So clean up as well. Maybe you can remove a stain. But the clean up, the up here is really just added just to make it sound much more casual and conversational. Now, when I sent, I'll just kind of pause here for a second. When I sent this out, actually someone wrote me back and they say, oh, I thought the up meant like it's completing something. And like, yeah, I guess you could think about it that way, but like native speakers don't really think about that. Like an example would be maybe eat up. So I tell my daughter, hey, eat up all your food. And this is really, it's not like saying like eat up everything means the completion of it. It's just like, I want you to just eat your food. So I don't add the up to make it like complete. The same thing with like cook up is an example. Like there's no difference between like cooking something and cooking something completely. So if you have an idea, just like that person who wrote me and was asking, is there a difference? Like I thought it meant to complete something. So you look for a counter example of where like maybe that doesn't work. So for cook up, it doesn't work. So we wouldn't be using that. And that would mean, okay, probably it doesn't mean that, or if it does, it doesn't mean that for all of them. But this is a much easier way to understand this. And when conversations are happening, this is the kind of thing that phrasal verbs are used for. So it's really just to add, it makes it sound much more conversational and natural. And again, this is why conversations, phrasal verbs are really the most important thing you should be learning for conversations because they're so useful. Again, you see these very simple words that we're using here and you're just combining them in different ways. So next we have wrote up. So to write something up, I wrote something up yesterday. There's no difference between I wrote an article or I wrote an essay or I wrote something up. You can have a slight meaning of maybe you're writing it up faster, but maybe it can kind of be like that. But even if you're talking about writing something more quickly, writing something up doesn't really have a meaning of having up in anything. So you're not like, unless you're writing something up on a wall, like physically you're trying to do that. But again, it's one of those examples where you don't lose anything by removing the up. So if up is not here and we just have write or wrote, then we don't change the meaning of that. Same thing for buckle up. So buckle up means like to buckle your seatbelt. We don't add or change anything by adding the up. It's just there to sound more conversational. So if you remove the up, does it change anything? So we buckle or we buckle up. It doesn't matter. It's just sounding more conversational. Last one is wash up. So we need to wash up before dinner or we need to wash before dinner. Okay, it's really not changing anything at all. So again, this is just an example of where you're using something and sounding more conversational, and you can do this with pretty much any phrasal verb. It's just, again, there are different ways of organizing phrasal verbs, and there are lots more rules if you want to think about it, but it's not going to help you communicate automatically if you try to learn every single rule about this and how you can use it and why you can use it. Little children don't use that, so I'm teaching these same things to my daughter, and if you watch that previous video of us speaking, you will see phrasal verbs in there. And again, that's just because it's easier to teach your child a couple of simple words like this and then combine them in different ways, like call up or call over or call off or call in, all these different things. Like she knows up and in and over, but we're combining them in different ways, and that's what helps her speak. She can have to just think of only a few words and then combine them in different ways, but she can make lots more interesting and difficult sounding expressions or different. She can express more difficult ideas, and it's going to be a lot easier for her to speak. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about this, but basically this is the lesson that I gave like at my house. And if you like learning like this, the way I speak with my daughter, or the way I teach my daughter or my wife or her mother or, any of the other people in her family, even just every day when I'm talking with people, this is the way that I teach. So it's the same way I teach my family. And if you'd like to learn more about doing that, you can get the Fluency course. And this is just like our program that really covers everything: phrasal verbs, idioms, how to master grammar the right way, all the different basic ways that we help people learn. But again, it's learning like a native, so you develop the sense of a native, so you speak like a native. So don't focus on trying to learn a bunch of rules that you're only going to forget. It's going to be more difficult for you if you try to learn a whole bunch of difficult words or rules for things that you can't remember. Try to make something simple like this. Like, just make your own rules if you notice things like that, because this is exactly what native speakers are learning. If you ask native speakers about this, they'll probably say like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's just a sense of the sense of correctness, the sense for being able to use these, because phrasal verbs, like if you ask them, why did you say cook up instead of cook? And they would say, I don't know. Because there's no real usage for that. There's no reason for that to be there. It's just sounding more conversational. Well, again, if you'd like to learn more, you can click on any of the links in the upper right of this video or in the description below this video. And let me know if there's other things you'd like to learn. We are doing lots of things, again, with our new app and the courses that we're providing for lots of members that are following us on the newsletter. Again, you can subscribe to that for free. But if you want to keep learning more, let me know in the comments section below if you've enjoyed this video and you think I should make more videos like this, and if I should hang around on YouTube for a while and continue to make more videos. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.